thing that like the reason you and I even got to even know who each other is because of the pandemic and COVID. And, it's been very weird. I mean, I'll just give you, I had a reporter, this is about, it's kind of related, but a reporter that we both know sent me a message the other day, just like obviously just depressed about the current state of the media and just like, I can't believe this stuff. And I responded back. I said, look, I get up every morning and I put out tweets about some crappy story that's like factually inaccurate, that's completely politically biased, that I've read in the Times or the Post. I do it pretty much every morning. And every time I do it, I hate it. I'm just like, I don't want it to be this way, but it is the way it is. And I feel like, COVID, this pandemic fundamentally changed the way so many people, I think, look at academia, at research, at journals. I mean, the way I think about like, professional societies, the AMA, totally. I mean, I never really liked the AMA, and a lot of people like, younger people have been leaving the AMA for years and going to more specialized physician groups. But just the way I look at these people with just like so little trust now, which wasn't the way I thought before. It's certainly, I mean, in the first year of the pandemic, I did everything that I was being told to do. I followed all along. And then I just started seeing that like things weren't making sense. And I expected, this shift to happen, and people doubled and tripled down on the lies. And I just want to get your read. Like, what is your, I mean, you're a guy who went to Stanford at 18, lived there his whole life, undergrad, medical school, grad school. You've done nothing but, academic research your whole life. I mean, what is your read on this thing? It's like waking up one day and you've been a baseball player your whole life and you realize like, oh my God, everyone's been cheating and doing steroids, and you were like, didn't realize it. I mean, what's your read on this whole thing now?
I mean, I went through a real crisis of faith, I guess is the right word, in 2020. A lot of people I admired really just frankly lost their minds. Like they lost their capacity to reason when the pandemic hit. And worse, some of the most powerful people in science, you abuse their power to try to silence all discussion and consideration of alternate points of view during the pandemic. And the results were terrible. Like kids were out of school for a year and a half. They're still far behind. The depression and anxiety at scale, economic harm to the poorest of people in the world. I can completely understand why a lot of people lost their faith and confidence in the scientific institutions and the public health institutions of this country. Our results were terrible during COVID, and we were essentially following the advice of some of the most powerful people in public health and in science. To me, my job is partly is in part to like to reform science so that it becomes worthy of the trust of the public again. This is why I focus so much on reproducibility, right? The one of the major ideas about reproducibility, sort of that undergirds it, is that look, just because you publish a paper in Lancet, Paul, doesn't mean you have the right answer. It's
Right.
just a paper.
Right.
Truth in science comes from other people independently checking your work. And if they find the same thing as you, they assess your methods and they find it
Well,
rigorous, then
but that,
then then you have some confidence that what you say is true.
well, that's what we're taught, right? As undergrads in high school, that's what you're told in high school. That's what you're told, like in when you're an undergrad taking a biology course or whatever, lower division science course. But that's not what really happens. That's not how the system really works. That we have this
But I want to
philosophical
change the
idea.
system, Paul.
Yeah.
I want to change the system so that is how it really works. In a sense, I want to fundamentally transform how we evaluate truth in science. Truth in science is not, I got a paper published in Lancet. That is not truth. That's just a hypothesis. Truth in science is you have an idea that you bring data and test it. Your idea passes your test. Then other people look at it and they try to test your idea and they find the same thing as you or similar things as you. You come at it from a different angle, you find the same answer. That's how you determine truth in science. I want to establish replication as the standard of truth in science in reality, not just what we tell fourth graders,
Okay, but the
right?
only way you're going to do that is if there's, right, and we know how this works in science. If you want people to do certain things, then you have to. They're chasing the money.
You got
So
to pay for it.
where's the money? Where's the money going to come
That is
from
the
for the
beautiful thing
replication?
about the NIH, Paul. I mean,
Right.
It's the single biggest, as you said, single biggest
Yeah.
public source of funding for biomedical research in the world by
Right.
far.
Right.
And it has tremendous influence. Just a few ideas. One will start to like fund research on replication research on like the
So specifically for you'll be able to apply for a fund to just for replicating other studies.
yes. And the idea
Okay.
would be to let the scientific community decide what's the most important studies to replicate rather than having the government decide. I don't want the government saying replicate this, this, and this.
Okay.
Replication shouldn't be punitive. It should be something that's collaborative, right?
Right.
Just because you have a study and hypothesis that turns out not to replicate, doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Science is hard. You just
Right.
you reach the conclusion didn't generalize, right? That's fine. Even a failed replication effort is an advance in science, scientific knowledge.
Right.
Second, I want to put replication really up above. Did you get it published in a top journal? So we're going to start having, you'll search for a paper, and there'll be a replication button. You click the replication button, and there'll be a summary of all of the other relevant studies that sought to replicate the research result that you had.
The same as like when you have a citation or an altmetric score, you'll have a replication score also.
Not just the score. You'll have a links to all the papers, so you can do
All the
your own
papers.
assessment,
Okay.
right? And then you will have as well as the replication, and then the last thing is the metrics, right? So rather than just evaluating scientists based on how many citations you have, which is essentially a measure of influence, and how many papers you
Right.
publish, a measure of volume, it'll be,
Right.
do you share your data? How often do you share your data? Make it available. How effectively do you describe your method so that other people can replicate your work? A whole other range of metrics that better measure what we actually want scientists to do. What I'm looking for is a transformation of science, of the culture of science, so that replication becomes something that people want to have happen to them, because you won't get credit for your work unless it's been replicated,
Right.
rather than something that's a threat to you. Oh, because if you replicate my work, I might have to retract my paper. If I fail to replicate my
Right.
work, I might have to retract my paper. I'm going to
Right.
change the mindset of scientists to want replication rather than to view it as a threat.